people. This is Aaron James Draplin, representing the good people of the Draplin Design Company, and you're listening to the Master of One podcast. Come to ddcbook.com, draplin.com, fieldnotesbrand.com. Okay, go.
Welcome to this Sandbox episode of the Master of One podcast, part 2 for this week. This week we talked to veteran printer and CEO of Mama Sauce, Nick Sambrato. I'm Andrew, your Master of Art and Design.
I'm Patrick, your Master of Television and Film.
And I'm Luke, your Master of Toys and Games.
So fire up your letterpress, because it's time to make some memories.
Is this a Klugenstein?
For this Sandbox episode, we're excited to talk to somebody who created a company that you've probably heard of if you're in this industry. This is the guy who is the CEO and maker of the sauce over at Mama Sauce, amateur baker, gardener, and serial lurker. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Nick Sambrato to the show.
Was I supposed to clap?
Yeah, sure.
I did.
Yeah,
It makes
no,
it sound
we
bigger.
love
Yeah, you have
self-indulgence.
confidence. It's good.
Oh man, no, it was honestly you brought me there, Patrick. Your enthusiasm brought me to clapping. I was clapping for you.
Aw.
That was amazing.
Man, that's the first that anyone's ever said that about him. It's a beautiful thing. Even at his high school graduation, weren't you homeschooled?
I did actually go. I had a high school graduation.
Let's move on. This
We
is not a
digress.
time or
me.
place.
This is about
hey,
Nick.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are? Give us a quick Wikipedia page about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Saleh, otherwise known as Nick Sambrato. I have a company called Mama Sauce, and we do handmade printing. Sometimes actually with machines that pick up the paper for us. We started doing it with our own hands, and now these letterpresses have things that suck the paper in for us, which is awesome. But we do letterpress, silk screen, we do hot foil, and we print things on paper, not on much else, but paper. And we do it with love because that's what Mama would do.
See, okay, all right. So that answers the question right off the bat. Like, where does the name come from, Mama Sauce?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just honestly was like a thing that popped out in a moment amongst three guys that were just having a good time and had just happened to be Italian Americans learning about printing, loving things with a kitchen with a bowl of ink in it. And the name just came out. And so it didn't have any kind of meaning to it. But now I can confidently say, like, yeah, made with love, like Mom would make it. You know, your home, fine ingredients, all of those things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a little bit of Italianism, yeah, a little bit of metaphor and just all-out silliness and an excuse to hang meat in our windows.
I love it because I think a lot of times when it comes to branding and stuff like that, we can get hung up, myself included, in having like the perfect meaning for something the second that you have an idea. It's like, oh, we can't launch something until we come up with the best name or the best whatever. Sometimes you come up with a great name and then the meaning finds itself later, and now they've paired together nicely. I think that's let that be a lesson to you youngsters out there. I don't know what I'm saying at this point. So, okay, so other than having this bowl of ink sitting around a table, what drew you to this idea of starting a print company, a handmade print company on paper, not like a promotions company where you make like foam footballs and pens for corporate America? What drove you to do this thing that some people could say is a dying art?
Yeah, it was honestly doing the exact opposite that kind of brought me here, man. That I was doing digital printing before, and maybe it's exciting now, I don't know, but when I was doing it, to begin with, it was just you click a button, a piece of paper comes out, you put it on the tabletop cutter, you trim it, you put it in a box and ship it off. And so it was really I don't know, it just it wasn't inspiring. It was just a thing that we did to service, touring bands. And that was the cool part. We were giving cheap things to touring bands, but it was laser printing. And it's,
Right.
laser printing sounds really cool.
In
Well,
concept,
sounds like
right?
the
in
movie Real
concept.
Genius, but like with paper on the other side.
We're printing with lasers.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not as cool as that. There's no like, not lightsaber printing, not like lasers. It's really humdrum, man. And so I honestly, I mentioned that moment, with a bowl of ink and three Italian guys, and one of them was a graphic designer. So no one in our story was a graphic designer. Right, really, before that, I had a record label. I bought a digital print shop that was not Mama Sauce with lasers, and it serviced touring bands, which are people I worked with. And then we met a designer who also serviced bands, but not in a, like, hey, let me get you the cheapest thing I can kind of way. But he was a garage printer, and he was doing graphic design and printing gig posters and shirts in his garage. And then when he was kind of going to do something else, and his name's Austin Petito, by the way, he's not the one who shall not be named. I'll go ahead and say his name, Austin Petito. And then where I was like, oh, this seems like another thing we could sell to these bands, whatever that is, making shirts and stuff. And then in the 2 weeks that he had of time to show us how to do it, you flat out fall in love. You don't flat out fall in love with a laser printer. I mean, maybe, I don't know, objectophiles or whatnot, but but this stuff, making things, I got one laugh there. You're in a room mixing inks and the machines. It's just, I don't know, man. You fall in love with it. I mean, you've probably toured a print shop. You've probably been in them. It's like real inks, and it's just, how could you not fall in love with it?
There's something about There's something about doing stuff with your hands and like actually, not just setting a machine to just do it. That just feels different and better. Whether So that's a feel
that is a feel with hands. That is correct. When you use your hands, it's a feel.
Oh, I hate the fact that that's never going to make it to the air.
So here's the thing.
Like, no one's
Luke
ever gonna
doesn't
hear
normally
that.
talk very much, and he got excited for a moment. Like, you made him excited for a second, so he started to talk, and then he panicked because he realized he had no idea what to say, and he just...
Which is why he said, and that's the feel.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
So
it
if
so
it
much.
wasn't, like, if you didn't find that passion in letterpress or kind of going to this, like, more traditional form of printing, would you have moved on to something else, or were you also kind of balancing that you did still have a love for printing? Like, for instance, would you have moved on and started, like, become a blacksmith and started, like, hammering out metal or something, or you wanted to stay in that industry, you just wanted to find a section of that industry that got you excited again?
No, I wasn't searching for something to do with my hands. I wasn't searching for a way to get back in touch with, the things my grandfather did, or, even my father was a woodworker, like, I wasn't searching for that. I just bumped into it, and making things with your hands. And I think we all have some experience in that, like, whether it's, arts and crafts in school or it becomes a hobby or whatever. And there's something we all have deep in us that's been bred and deep. And once you get it, you just love it. So I don't think I would have went searching for it, but when you bump into it and it's in your path, you grab it.
Yeah, exactly. So you said you were doing stuff, you were giving stuff like bands and stuff like that. Did you play yourself? Are you a musician?
I'm a noodler. I noodle a lot.
So just...
it's full on shred noodle. And it's the worst, man. I am not a good player at all. I've been playing probably 20 years, and it was one of those things where there was just never even a thought of being a musician. The best I could hope for one day, if I spend the next 30 years of my life with a voice instructor and a guitar instructor, is to maybe sing Jimmy Buffett songs in a bar in my retirement. And that would be a dream come true.
I think you can do that now.
Yeah, maybe we have our outro right there. That's a feel.
Yeah.
And I'm just practicing right now.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was without the talent. And again, when this thing's put in your way, a record label just came up. A friend of mine was doing it. He needed a strategic partner, somebody that would come in with some money. I had a little bit of money because of that whole stupid real estate thing, and I have no idea how I got it. But in like 2006, people were just handing you money that had something to do with houses. So I had a little bit of money, and you know, again, this was put in my path. Music. A guy was like, "Hey, I could use a partner in this band with, you know, in this record label that I'm going to launch around this band." And so it was put in my path, and I said, "Yeah, let's do that, man." And it fulfilled that thing, you know, I would never get to do, which is, you know, be in music for a living, because I'll never be good enough. I'm being honest.
Well,
I'll never be good enough to be in music.
Well, I don't feel that way, but no, I understand what you're saying. Like, it allows you to be still involved. I mean, it's like for instance, I'm not a designer by any stretch, so I am not your target demographic. But at the same time, I love that through my web development that I get to support designers. I get to be a part of the community. Same thing through the podcast. This is my opportunity to like cheerlead the people that do the thing that I think is like super cool and interesting. So I'm not saying you set out to be a cheerleader, but I think I kind of understand of it's your chance to contribute to something that you care about.
Hey, and let me ask a question to the designer here, Andrew. Like,
Yeah.
Like our company again, like, you know, like just like you, Patrick. You know, we are not designers, or a lot of people that work in Mama Sauce are designers, but we don't offer design. They just happen to be designers, and they're working in printmaking. But we're somehow part of the graphic design community, right? Even though we're not designers, thank you, you know, for letting us be part of that. And so the same way we get to service them like you do. You're saying, Patrick, but Andrew, what is a designer? What community does a designer look at and be like, I want to be part of your world, like we feel about yours? Because listen to Patrick, listen to me. We're like, oh, we want to be part of design world. Like, what's higher than what you do? It's so cool.
Yeah, no, I think we are pretty well self-involved. We just look inside
it's
ourselves.
just a group of really selfish people.
You know, I say that, you know, obviously joking, but if I were to, I don't think I could pinpoint a single thing, because you can find design, good design and bad design consequently, but good design literally anywhere, in any product, in any organization or whatever. I think you're not going to find a single thing. You're going to find pockets of people who invest their time in various things. You know what I mean? So, I think you hone in on a good design, or something that's either going to challenge you or fit fit a mold that you've already kind of deemed as something that inspires you, and then you go after that. I don't think we're we're pretty flexible when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But at the same time, you're still like completing the design. Like looking at some of these pieces you do, and so I'm looking at primarily the letterpress stuff right now, but it's like, it would not be the same design sans what you bring to the table, right? It would be sans the stock, or sans the press, or sans the foil, or whatever it is. It would not be the same thing that the person ultimately ends up holding. So you're very much so doing like the final 10% for the artist.
You know, that's a really, really cool point. And I wouldn't even give us as much as 10%, but we do view ourselves as collaborators. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it happens. It happens, you know, almost every day, but it's not every design. I would say less than 10%, or right around 10% of the designs that come to us come buttoned up with the designer saying, like, really naming it, you know, this paper, this shade, I wanted this PMS and this process, and you know, really just laying it out so buttoned up tight. The highest category where that comes in is honestly like wedding invitations. There's a lot of very niche invitation stationers who are like, they send it and they know exactly what they want, and so they chart really high on that. Once you get out of that category, we're in collaboration zone, baby. People come to us and they're like, what do you think? You know, and that's really exciting and fun.
Yeah, and I think you've earned the trust of people because you've been around now and you've worked with some very high-end clients, and we'll get there. But there's a piece that I want to kind of focus on here for a second, and it's right in the realm of what we're talking about. The education part of it, the collaboration, the informing people of things, I think is what brings credibility. You have a whole section on your website devoted to educating people on what these things are. Now, it's smart in a lot of ways because one, you're educating the consumer, and an educated consumer is a consumer who trusts you, who is a lot more relaxed, who knows the process. So that's good from a business standpoint. And then the other side of that, it's an amazing business strategy because you're selling your services through this process as well. You're educating people on the process, and then you're saying, hey, we can actually do this for you, which is super smart. So as you're developing the business, so how long has Mama Sauce been around in this iteration?
Mama Sauce will be 10 years old in October.
Nice.
Oh man.
Okay, so you're getting ready to hit a decade,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're hitting double digits, right? So at what point did you guys decide to adopt this business strategy or this business model of like over informing and over educating the consumer?
It started rearing its head like 5 years ago when we had a marketing manager. At that time, especially, titles didn't mean much. People did way more than whatever their title said.
Sure.
And sometimes they couldn't even do the thing their
Sure.
title said. But this guy, Brooks Chambers, who is just amazing, amazing dude. He's I think he's at Twitch right now. And developing that kind of approach with him. And he really helped lead that charge and the idea and putting together what we kind of stand for and what our messaging is based around. And so we started working under this mantra. It's been at least 5 years of, inspiration plus education and collaboration equals perpetuity. And honestly, I used to always say inspiration plus education equals perpetuity for us. And Brooks really said, like, no, collaboration's part. So going back to that last point, he really introduced the idea and telling me like putting the value on the knowledge we had to me, which was really cool. But so our website, like you see, we inspire people through our Instagram and inspire people to work with us, and then we educate them both on the price points and then in that DesignWise database. I think we just really turned it up. Like when we launched this website, I think it was a year ago, last February, so a year and a half ago, with this new site, just putting it all up front and saying you have to, before you can't even get to get a quote button from us unless you go through inspiration and education. Then you can hit, you know what I mean? Like you literally, the call to action is buried kind of deep, which is really a weird thing for someone trying to sell you something.
Yeah, my industry would complain about that. But I will say, like, the fact that you produce content, because very few people, we're talking about, some small percentage of a percent actually generate educational content, whether it's blog posts or video posts or whatever. So when you do that, you establish yourself as an expert. Just by way of producing the content, you establish yourself as an expert. And therefore, when people want somebody, they're going to reach out to the expert. So it makes total sense. And it's honestly something more people should look to do. I think sometimes there's this misconception that if you have a good thing, you should hold it tight and not tell anybody about it. Or like if it's shrouded in mystery, like if the consumer doesn't know, then they have to rely on you. And I just don't think that's the case anymore. I think if the consumer feels like that you're investing in them and educating them and that you know what you're talking about, then in that case, they're going to trust you to do the work. So I love that idea. You said the word perpetuity. This is now twice. So you said it once just now. You said it again before we started recording. It seems like it's probably a word that stays on your mind a lot, or something that's like something you come back to. What does that mean for you in relation to Mama Sauce? And then how do you drive towards that?
Oh, man. So keeping our brand integrity in shape and locked in while making money and being viable and sustainable, right, is proving to be really, really challenging when you realize at the end of the day we are both a manufacturer, which is a very capital hungry type of company to run. It requires capital to keep our doors open. You know, whether someone sends us a job or not, like, you know, we need we got to have money. And then when they send us a job, there's a lot of costs in that job. So to run the business is expensive. So that's a particular challenge. And manufacturing is changing in such a way in that you have on-demand style manufacturing, digital printmaking, all kinds of different things that are working more towards clicking on a button to make something happen. So that's another challenge. So we're moving forward carrying this this brand banner saying that like we make things in this certain way, when eventually, you know, the facsimile of what we do will be figured out by the robots, no problem. And so the experience is what we have to, you know, ultimately provide, and the story, like the content you're talking about, we have to provide. But at the end of the day, perpetuity means figuring out how do we evolve our brand and our message and who we are, right? Are people starting to see us more as just quality printmaking than they are as letterpress, foil, and offset, or and screen print? And I actually had that slip because I was about to say people will still, no matter how much education and inspiration we put in front of them and how deep we bury the call to action behind the layers of that, somebody will every day, multiple times a day, will still find their way through all these things meant to, you know, get you to the point where you understand how to work with us and what we do. They'll still navigate through all that and then say, print this photo for me, right? This full color 4/4.
Sure, yep.
And then you start to realize like what they really want. They want the sauce, baby, you know? And, and so you start to get muddled into like, well, what is our brand? What is our brand promise? And what do see us as? And how big is the market cap that can ultimately possibly sustain us versus the one that we're living and dying by every day right now and struggling to do so. And so, you know, you start to think about other processes, you know, and then you see the movements of things going towards products, going towards, you know, well, I mean, and things like services where they're not manufactured. So yeah, I'm always thinking about what we can do to leverage our brand that is a step in the positive direction for perpetuity for us that also doesn't alienate our audience and say, you know, we're not going to pivot, man, you know, but like we got to do something, you know, and that's the way I think I'll always feel. And it's what I love and what I absolutely hate about running a business at the same time.
So let's talk about your clients, some of the people that you've worked with before, and you talk about storytelling, and these are the people who are telling the story, and you're kind of you are helping that story come to life. Essentially, you're giving it legs. So you've got quite a impressive list, at least just at a glance. Even Tim Anderson, you've got Clark Orr. I believe I saw a little something from Mr. Aaron Draplin in there. DDC. You've also got DKNG and Dave Quiggle. I mean, just to name a few of the people who we appreciate. What's it like for you to get something in your hands from let's say DKNG, who have worked with some amazing clients themselves and have worked with some amazing products and brands themselves? What's it like to know that you're taking that and they're kind of handing you these high-end designs, this high-end business, and they're saying, okay, we're entrusting this to you now. You are going to ultimately be the presenter of this idea that we have. What is it like for you as a business owner to take these designers' ideas and make them happen?
I'm so glad that you use DKNG as your example, because as you're listening to clients, and you said DKNG, I was like, oh, I got to follow up on this because I want to be really respectful of their printer. Because DKNG, we've done a project with as a collaboration with Adobe, which again, I think this is right in line with what you're saying because it's a whole other level. But they have their own, they have a guy they work with that's not us that produces all of their stuff. And it is amazing. And the printmaking is amazing. And there are so many great printmakers in this country. And I don't know. I don't want to pretend that we're the only people that work with great designers. But so, anyways, I just wanted to make sure people knew, that like DKNG, like we don't print all their stuff. We did this cool project. So, anyways, this cool project is really, really awesome. And it's an example of what you're saying. Like all of a sudden, Adobe's having us curate a designer from their conference to produce a experiential event poster for Adobe Max. And I think to me, that's like almost like a peak of what you're saying. Like, what's it like to work with amazing people? It's like, oh my gosh, like I'm not qualified to pick out who's the best designer to work with. Cause I'm not a designer, but at the end of the day, like, geez, we couldn't have gone wrong with DKNG, but I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan of what they do. And so for me, I'm a huge fan of all these people you named. Like, and you named a lot of people in an aesthetic realm that as not a non-designer, until I actually found designer friends, I realized what my aesthetic, what I've always loved and was drawn to is like, dude, it's a lot like yours, Andrew, man. Like the stuff you listed, like 80s nostalgia and toys and all that. Like I'm way into that stuff. So for me, it's like fanboy stuff. I geek out on it. It's like, I don't even have to forget anything because I'm nothing in the graphic design world. So I get to be a fan. So it's really, really cool. And it gets levels deeper of cooler too, because I'm like, you said in your intro, I'm a lurker, right? I'm a long time lurker, man. And so I'm not in the conversation so much, and I don't produce the art, and I may not even like really roll deep on, like I might sell my Garbage Pail Kid collection. Let's be honest, I might do that. So I'm not as legit as Tim Stiles, who runs our screen print press, and he is such a fan of all these things and all these people we talk about too, and not just fans of the designers, but we're fans of the same things. So to see our company to work with these people is amazing, but to have a company that gives an opportunity for people like Tim, who are such a fan, to work on things that like are going to go out not just into the ether, but into these zones where they'll bounce around with other fans of design and other fans of that level of nostalgia. I couldn't be a more proud mama when that kind of stuff happens, man. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question indirectly or directly.
Yeah,
but
no.
I don't know. It's just really neat.
I love it. So here's my follow up to that. You get excited about it. You get excited to work with people. You've been doing this for 10 years. It is easy for people who have less tenure in this industry to just get a little jaded and to be a little entitled, and it's really refreshing from this vantage point to see that you've not gotten there. For you, it's like you did the whole I'm not, who am I to pick these people? Adobe is entrusting Adobe, right? It's Adobe, and they're entrusting you the opportunity to pick and then collaborate and produce, and you go with DKNG, and that geeks you out and you get excited about that kind of stuff. That's really refreshing from this seat, because man, you could easily at this point in the game just be like, yeah, it's old hat, and you're not. So I'm from my perspective, I'm really, really happy to hear that.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, man. So Patrick mentioned, he asked about perpetuity before. I mean, it's because that's all, and you said it's always on my, it seems like it's always on mine. I'm stoked on this stuff because that's always on my mind. Perpetuity, relevance. It makes you so grateful when you wake up in the morning and when you're in an industry where your back feels like you're against the wall. And maybe you feel like your back's against the wall because the whole world is like, your back should be against the wall. You're imprinting, Like even, some this name shall not be mentioned, but some dude, a politician the other day, it's like mentioned like these industries that were tanking, and he mentioned paper in it, right? And I was just like, oh man, that's like, that's the politician talking about our industry as like a signifier it's going down. When that level of discourse is out there, man, you're grateful every day when anybody sends you a job.
Sure.
Students, I get so stoked on students sending us work, as stoked as Aaron Draplin, because I mean, it takes all of us. And it's amazing that new young people in this game are thinking about doing printmaking.
Yeah.
Not just with us, but in general. That satiates and that scratches that little perpetuity devil in my ear going like, like, yeah,
this might outlive me.
Yeah. Or, this thing might not like this business might not live in this industry. And you're like, no, man, F you, little dude, like it's so you get real grateful real quick.
Yeah.
And if you don't stay there, of course you'll get jaded.
Sure.
If you're not grateful for everything that comes your way, man.
So take us into, before we got actually started, we talked a little bit about what is the other things you kind of are dipping into. So talk to us a little bit about the other part that's not printing for Mama Sauce and what kind of you're doing.
Yeah, man, this might be my, I don't know, what is that tragic, your tragic flaw, where you're like, my tragic flaw is like, I know so well, don't start anything new. Don't stretch yourself until you've seen whatever it is that you're currently involved in and take it as far as you can. Don't try to leverage that. Right. But again, there's this little thing being like, man, you got to evolve, you got to change. So I'm constantly trying to do new things, but the core of our message, and you notice like, we don't really deviate from our feed. Our feed is consistent. You know what you're going to get. And when we try something new, we put it out there and then we go right back. I'm not going to double post an event or so a lot of this stuff that we're trying to get into, it feels really small because it is really small because we're trying not to stretch ourselves too hard. But we're out there trying, and I'd say we're in the sandbox of a few things and down the road on some others, all in the idea of trying to leverage our brand to create more opportunity for the people in our company, to create a more sustainable, environment that still carries this brand in a new way. So we just had a gallery show that ran for a month that was called Client Work.
Nice.
That was a selection of like 150 posters from our 10-year history. That was a beast to try to stretch and do when we're still trying to take the current thing we're doing as far as we can take it, right? Like, how can we be the best printer we possibly can be? But no, let's do this gallery show and talk to a couple hundred artists and then manage all the shipment and get it in and hang a show and have an opening. And, but that kind of stuff's exciting, man. And people in the company went the extra mile to see it happen. And now here we are. We exposed 150 of our artists to these people in a gallery space who otherwise wouldn't be in tune with this graphical, this graphical world that we live in that typically only gets in front of a lot of people's eyes when, to mass audience's eyes and, I don't know, with names attached to it in a way where it just never gets out there like this. It should. Like it should, like eventually somebody's great work, like Chris De Lorenzo, I don't know if you guys know that guy, but
absolutely.
Man, he's doing illustrations that are, going into major publications. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing that he's doing his thing and it's getting out there and you're like, it's getting out there. This, the people in our community are way out there and it's awesome. And not in a way where it's like, somebody knocked off their work and reproduced it, or not in a way where someone's like, I just licensed their that thing and I did anything I wanted to it, and put it on all of these things. Which, I mean, all these things have a place. The universe is great, big, and wonderful, room for everything. But to do a show and follow that course I believe in, it's like, man, let's expose a rising tide raises all ships. Let's go out and do something that makes no sense for us commercially. To do this gallery show and be in this space where we sold a lot of art we sold our clients art, and the gallery got the money. And then as soon as the gallery gives us the other share, the clients, are the artists, the artists get the money on that thing.
Right.
And I went in there after the opening was amazing and it was awesome and fun. And I went in there during the day. I happened to be by the gallery and I popped in and there was just a guy standing in there just looking, and you're just engulfed in all this spot color work of all these beautiful aesthetics. And he looks over at me, and when I walk in, he goes, "This is awesome." It's just like, oh man, and you look at the dude, size him, and be like, that's not a designer, dude, but he's just wrapped and engulfed in all this design and print, and it was super cool. So that gallery show was like a Sandbox thing to test, like, what's the viability out there? Will the greater market really embrace this in a way where it's not just where we're going, let's just curate this little snippet of this style that Chris De Lorenzo does, and we'll put it in this magazine because it makes sense, No, what if we, and that's amazing, but what if you set that dude loose, man? What if you just let him produce work and we just put it out and put it in front of everybody? Will people buy it? And people bought it. Yeah. And so we're working on a brand, and this is a thing that goes way back that we've been meaning to get to a long time. That we'll be launching that is just this. It's just us representing artists and their printed goods in a way where we take it on tour with us, because we go around, we get to shows and we do speaking and other stuff, where we have a web store that we're spending money pushing it and advertising it to the greater market for people to get design in their hands that's just not in our little echo chamber, which is awesome. We could service each other all day, but let's go out and bring this design to the rest of the world. And then who knows where else it goes from there. So we're working on that. We got some proprietary software that we may eventually release to help make other printmakers, be able to scale and leverage this thing that is manufacturing and antiquated machines. And I don't know, we just got a lot of exciting things on the horizon of doing a lot of experiential stuff and events and live printing. It's
sweet.
It takes a lot to keep this going, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, clearly you guys do get around too. I know you guys are going to be at Adobe Max. You were at Creative South. We saw you, and you've got like another gig in between there, right? You have a whole events section on your website, so you can, if you're interested in connecting with these guys, you can figure out where they're at and join them there. But so we're going to shift to final questions, and I'll kick us off. You are based in Orlando. And today, so I'm going to ask a really specific question about a really specific project. Today actually marks the 1-year anniversary on record date, the 1-year anniversary of the Pulse tragedy. And you partnered up with our buddy Clark Orr on this project for Orlando. It was the City Beautiful project. I want to know about that. I want to know about, take us through the idea, take us through the collaboration, and then ultimately what you guys did with the proceeds of all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So when that happened, like I was, it's one of those things where you wake up and you remember that feeling, your city gets attacked and your community gets attacked, and a place that honestly, like, it's no joke. I mean, that was a landmark, and you instantly want to do something. And Clark came to us with an idea. We went to a few other people with some other ideas, and we all just said, okay, whatever we got to do, let's do this. I rang up Brian French at French Paper and said, we have a couple collaborations going with Hillary Powers, with Clark Orr, a few other people. We want to raise as much money as we possibly can. Every dollar to go to the victim relief. It was called the One Fund then. I don't know if the name's changed, but it basically all trafficked through this place called the Center, Orlando. Which honestly, I mean, I was hearing interviews with Terry, the director, today, like on NPR all day, and then eventually Adobe. We produced this series through our sister company, our parent company, Fiction, for Adobe, called Creative Matchup, and they did a benefit episode of that where two designers go head to head for a prize, and these two designer teams publicist in OMFGC Co. Competed to donate designs to the center for communication needs that they had, the Center Orlando. Mm-hmm. And so between that Clark thing and Hillary's thing, and then having like Hillary Powers print as well, and then benefiting with the Adobe project. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars were raised through the design community, and we saw orders, these posters that we sold with Clark, go all over, and a lot of familiar names and non-familiar names. We sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and it was just amazing that like French was like, anything you need, we're there, right? The design community, donated time. It was just, I don't know, it was amazing to be part of that. And so, a lot of, it was a great part of feeling a sense of unity in a city that frankly has a brand about it that's different than we feel than the actual brand is, or we only half of the stories out there. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that tragedy was a really you can't say it was bittersweet. You could say it was really bitter. But in a lot of ways, it feels amazing as a to see that this community rose to such a way and enforced its brand in a different way, mm-hmm. and rose with such positivity. Yeah. So it was really cool to be part of that from a designer's from the design community and print community's perspective, and frankly, I have close friends, that really, really are grieving over this really hard, and just to, in our own way, to say like, we're here to, we got you, just like they got you and they got you. They got so many people stood up. It was a really terrible moment, but a special moment for the world to say like, no, man, this junk will not stand. I'll censor myself there.
Yeah, you guys rallied,
man,
and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
I went to school in Orlando. I lived my whole first 25 years of life, 26 years of life in the Tampa, Orlando area. So when that happened, I obviously got on the phone with several of my friends who currently still live there, and I have a couple of my friends who literally lived right across the street in the apartments across the street. And it was just seeing it from a different perspective, and then being able to look at how well the design community specifically, I'll just say that. I mean, the community at large, but the design community specifically, how they picked up this torch and really band together was a proud moment for anybody who has ever called Florida or Central Florida home. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it was cool to see that you partnered up with Clark, because like I said, we're huge fans of Clark, and the work that he did for that was just beautiful. And
he's a gem, isn't he, man?
For sure.
Real deal. If you guys don't know Clark Orr, I mean, everyone listening to this got to know Clark Orr. If you don't, Clark ORR, man, he is just,
he's somewhere
he's
he's somewhere back in our archive. Do y'all remember what episode we talked to him on?
Gosh, it was.
I'll try to pull it for the show notes. It's been a little over a year, because I think we talked to him right after Creative South. Actually, because that's where we connected. Exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, gosh, I hate following up this question because that's such a deep, serious topic. But
sorry, I'll ask that again.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to cut this together that way. Then that's at the end, because now, how do you transition that? I do love the fact that you have one really awful person, and it's combated by just thousands of really great people, and it's just it's awesome to see. So
I thought you had already transitioned, so when you and you're like, it's really I really think it's that you have one awful person. I was like, who are you talking about right now? I thought
I'm the only one sitting here.
Clark? Are you talking about Clark now? You have one awful person, Clark Orr, and then he does something so great.
So I'm curious. I was actually I'm a bit curious about process. We didn't talk a ton about what actually goes into the work that you do. I mean, we talked about the fact that it's, or at least my understanding is that we're dealing with, I want to almost say, more primitive methods of printing, but where it's a bit of, you made the comment about, your father or your grandfather's style. It's a bit of the old way. And I've seen some of the machinery. You have some really awesome videos on the site that show some of the machines in use. So working with this equipment, I'm curious if you just have like either a favorite machine that you use, or if you have like a favorite technique that you get to use when you're printing that like people may be unfamiliar with.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't know how familiar people are with. I was just going to talk about letterpress, but I could talk about specifically about a machine. Now, to be fair, I don't. I really only get to print when we live print now, because they got me doing too many other stupid things that just aren't printing, business things, which
like running the business.
yeah,
right?
and I mean, but honestly, like the people who print are like, man, they are wielding the coolest machines. And they are just the coolest people because they are they're in harmony with these things, working things that aren't as simple as clicking a button. So yeah, my favorite machine aesthetically is a Kluge letterpress. The aesthetics of it, I'll just never forget it. The first time seeing one, it is so our friend Chris wrote some copy for the first video we put out that ended up going air quotes viral, right? And it was a video of our first letterpress job, and it was on a Kluge. And I'm confident, that such a major part of that video getting out there and spreading its wings was just how beautiful this machine was. And the copy that he wrote was, I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember, but a whirling, dervish of. I don't think he said dervish, but of vacillating rods, and it was, and the way he described it was just so dead on. It's when Austin, that night I told you where Mama Sauce name just was birth. Yeah. Austin told me about a letterpress that night, right? Mm-hmm. And he described it, and this was in an era where you didn't look something up on your Trio, like just Google things on your flip phone or any of that stuff. So I had to imagine it. And when I first saw the machine and I said, what is that? And someone said a letterpress, and it happened to be a Kluge. I just said, of course it is. Because it was these vacillating rods that were evoked from the way that Austin Petito had described it to me. So I'll always have a soft spot for a Kluge, a letterpress. And it's my least favorite machine to print on, as far as the print, print making. A Heidelberg windmill is...
The quality is terrible, but I love the look of the machine.
It can do good work. It can do good work. But I'm a far greater fan of the Heidelberg windmill as from an operator standpoint. But aesthetically, the Kluge is completely transparent, and you see every bit of it working, all of it working.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Okay, so I'll do my final question, so we'll get this thing wrapped up. I'm going to take a completely different direction. So you're a noodler on an instrument. If you were going to be in a band, what would that band be?
Sweaty Uncles. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was actually, I was the Sweaty Uncle this weekend when I was. Me and my nephew were scraping my dad's pigeon coop in this South Florida summer heat. I was the Sweaty Uncle.
Nice.
Isn't that what a random statement
were more
that
than
is?
The Sweaty Uncle.
What a random phrase, or story. So, is it a fictitious band or a real band?
Yeah, like what style, I guess, is what I was getting at. Like, if you could be in any kind of band, what would that band be?
But I also want to addendum that and say, band. What would you name the band?
And who's in it?
No. I want to know the name of it. Whatever you land on, I want to know the name.
Okay, let's name a band real quick. I'm going to call it Bear Manilow. BEAR.
Okay.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Take it however you should. Picture the album art of that. If any of you guys want to sign up to do that.
Good.
True. Wink, wink.
Do you know a guy who can print it for us?
Only if you do it in a very specific way. Follow the instructions. Yeah, and like, dude, I would love. My first thought when you said that, my instant was like, oh man, I want to play drums in Rage Against the Machine.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I would, or guitar in Rage Against the Machines.
Yeah,
I'm not good enough to do either. Did I say machines plural? You know what? There's a lot of them out there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rage Against all the machines.
All the machines. But so if that was the band I was playing in, I would play drums in Rage Against the Machine. That would be a dream.
Yeah.
If I was making a band, it would be Bear Manilow, and we would be a reggae band.
Nice. I love it.
Because I can, naturally. Rage Against the Machine, reggae. Get it.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I see where that comes from. Absolutely. Well, so tell everybody where they can find what you do, where they can support what you do, and maybe more importantly for some of the people who are out there who don't necessarily care about supporting you, but more supporting themselves, you can use you as a service, right? So if you don't even care about Nick at all, and you don't care whether or not he eats tomorrow, don't worry about that. He can print some amazing stuff for you to sell to make money for yourself, right? So for all you selfish people, there's something for you. For all you compassionate people, there's something for you. Tell them where they can find you and be a part of this.
Sure. And if you're selling stuff for yourself that requires a package, like to wrap around it or hang on, we can do that for you too. Yep. And you can find all of these things, inspiration, education, and a way to get in touch with us at mamas-sauce.com. And that's MAMAS-SAUCE.com, or at Mama Sauce on the Instagrams, or on any of the social media stuff. That's where you can find us. There's really nothing to see about Nick Sambrato. If you want to see pictures of bread and of bread I bake in my garden, you can go look at my Instagram. But honestly, like this, I would highly suggest following Mama Sauce instead.
I'm picturing you baking bread in your garden. Like you're out there in the garden and they're like, what is he doing? It's just Nick being Nick again.
Are you reading my journal? Have you seen the sketches of the oven I'm going to build out
the
there?
outdoor sun oven?
The sun oven. All right. So go check all that stuff out. You're going to want to give them a follow 100%. You're such a rad dude. Patrick said something off air, I think, right before we started about you being the closest that we'll ever get to interviewing Owen Wilson. And at first I didn't get it. I get it now. Like, you're so chill. If I were to close my eyes, it would be rude. But if I were to close my eyes and listen, I'd be like, oh yeah, we could be talking to Owen Wilson right now. But since you're so chill and cool, I'm gonna assume that you're gonna draw tokens for us. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, then that's it for the interview portion. Up next, Nick's gonna draw some tokens. Every week we draw tokens to figure out exactly the categories we're going to talk about next week, and then we pick our topics based on those randomly drawn tokens. Now you're up to speed. Let's draw some tokens. I'm going to shuffle these up. I have 3 very physical, tangible tokens in my hand. Give me a number between 1 and 3, and you'll be picking for Luke.
3.
You got TV and film, Luke. Nice. Congratulations. All right, you got between 1 and 2, and you'll be picking for me. Patrick gets the leftovers today.
Beep, boop, beep,
2.
Toys and games. That means Patrick has art and design.
You did it.
Congratulations, everybody. You did it. You can find us on mf1podcast.com, where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff we just talked about in there, including all of Nick's links and all the goodness in there. You can find us on there. And once you do that, go over to iTunes and Stitcher and subscribe. That way you never miss an episode. 2 episodes every single week. One is a master category episode, and the other is an interview just like this. You can go to mf1podcast.com/archive to hear tons of other amazing interviews, including that of Clark Orr and DKNG and
Chris
Aaron
DeLorenzo.
And Chris DeLorenzo. And we actually have Tim Anderson, who we talked about in this episode, who's going to be joining us here in the next few weeks. So subscribe now to not miss those episodes. And then when you do that, rate and review. Why is that, Patrick?
Because it helps us, and we will read whatever you write on the air. Basically like a Ron Burgundy situation. Just picture that.
Yeah, if you put a question mark, we will read the question mark, I promise. And then after you do that, head over to the social medias. Just search MF1 Podcast on all the different platforms. We're there. We want to talk to you. Join our Slack channel, which is a community of almost 200 artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, thinkers, doers, amazing people day in and day out talking about the things you care about. You should be there with us. Go to mf1podcast.com/Slack to join that community now. I think we're going to get out of here for now. I said all the things, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's close. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds great. So for now, we're going to get out of here. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
I'm Nick.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.
Luke's a feel.
Welcome to this extended. Nope, it's not extended.
Extended.
Was it because you were thinking about my penis?
Did you guys get it out? Did you guys get it all out? Did you get it out?
No,
Good.
obviously not.
Welcome to this Sandbox
Penis
episode of the
still in
Master
there.
of One podcast, part 2 for this week. This week we talked to veteran printer and CEO of Mama Sauce, Nick Sambrato.
Oh.
I was really impressed. You just pushed through.
Yeah, because they can edit us out from talking.
Yeah.
That's true. All you have to do is just cut you out. Yeah. Welcome to this Sandbox episode of the Master of One podcast, part 2 for this week. This week we talked to veteran printer and CEO of Mama Sauce, Nick Sambrato.
Oh my God.
I'm Andrew, your Master of Art and Design.
I'm Patrick, your Master of Television and Film.
I'm Luke. I'm here.
So fire up your letterpress because it's time to make some memories.
What? When?